Let's bring in our military analyst, Sean Bell, for more on this. Sean, afternoon to you. So what do you make of the reports that we've seen from the IDF?
Yeah, good afternoon, Kamali. What is clear, there's two main issues from my perspective, one of which was the charity aid worker activity coordinated with the IDF. And from the briefing, it's pretty plain that it was. The World Central Kitchen movements were coordinated. They were also a safe and trusted aid team, so it doesn't seem any reason why the IDF would deliberately target them. But for some reason, when that information was passed to the Southern Group, actually passed into the hands of the military, particularly the drone operators, they weren't aware of the details of this. And the second question from me, which was sort of answered with Ali Bunkle's piece, is why did the IDF assume that a bunch of aid workers going around their business was actually a bunch of armed Hamas fighters? And I think you have to look at the timeline a bit to understand what, from the briefing that we were given by the IDF, at 10:28, there was somebody on top of the aid lorry as it was making its way to the warehouse that was firing potentially to keep crowds away. And at 10:46, 10 minutes later, a second gunman was on the roof of that vehicle. And as soon as you've got people with guns, it appears that the IDF naturally assumed that they were there for Hamas. When the four vehicles left that compound, one went north, three went south. That's when these 450 Hermes drones were actually watching. There were two of these drones, one watching the vehicle to the north. When that got to another warehouse, 4 or 5 people got out, all apparently armed. They couldn't attack those because they thought they were still too close to the aid warehouse. But in their mind's eye, from the briefings, it appears that therefore thought these other 3 vehicles heading south were packed full of Hamas fighters. And that's when the authority was given. And of course, from that moment, from 11:09, from that moment and every 2 minutes later, each of these vehicles was systematically attacked. Survivors getting to the next vehicle, and tragically, the final vehicle was destroyed, killing the 7 aid workers.
And to what extent is it a grave mistake, as the IDF put it?
I have a problem with this word mistake. I mean, in war, I've been involved in a lot, as our brave military have. You know, humans do make mistakes along the way. So you have a load of processes, procedures, standard operating procedures in place to try and make sure that you stop those ever happening. And therefore, you've got to find that, in this particular case, ID the target, follow the rules of engagement, and make sure there's a process for clearing weapons release. That's why you normally have a legal guy on your shoulder. It's incredibly frustrating sometimes, I know firsthand, from time in Afghanistan with those guys there, but they are designed to make sure that you don't make mistakes. There's clear release authority before a weapon is released, and every now and again, courageous restraint is used, where if you've any doubts at all, you don't fire the weapons for fear of causing a tragic mistake. So this tactical error will have strategic consequences. And my other worry here is that, was this actually a one-off? Or is this systemic within the Israelis? Because would we have been reporting on this had it not been an aid convoy and 3 Brits involved? There are actually nearly 200 aid workers have died in circumstances during this war. And the worry is actually that the systematic failings within the Israelis' defence force, how much has that contributed to the huge casualty count in this conflict?
In the aftermath of all of this, what are the implications for Israel and its relationship with the US and for what may come next in the war?
Well, even before this incident, it was clear there was a strain building between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu. The US, unlike a lot of nations that are looking to withdraw, stop exporting weapons, Biden can't really do that. They're the guarantor for Israel. But they've got to be worried, because if the weapons that America does provide get used in violation of international law, that means America's the wrong side of the law. So that's why it's ramping up pressure on Netanyahu. And that's what it appears justified these aid corridors starting to open up a bit earlier on. But with international and domestic pressure building on Prime Minister Netanyahu at the moment, he's becoming increasingly isolated. He's been very clear. He wants to finish the job by going against those 4 battalions of Hamas fighters. If he doesn't go into Rafah, it's pretty clear he will think he's failed. And the grave worry here from a military perspective is he just says right to the military, go in there, finish the job, what the UN potentially describes as a potential bloodbath, but live with the consequences afterwards with the international community. The Cairo negotiations are going on at the moment. That 9th of April deadline for the end of, planned to be the end of Ramadan, pretty high stakes at the moment.
Certainly is. All right, Sean, always appreciate the analysis. Thank you very much.